Hello and welcome. I'm Lorraine Driscoll and this is Building Better Brains, where each week we talk about the root cause of why your child might be having a hard time learning and behaving and what you can do to help so that your child doesn't just manage a challenge but kicks it to the curb. So today we're talking about back to school, and with that topic there is always two camps. So there's the parents who love it more than Christmas, and then there's the ones who actually hate it, because for many parents this means morning meltdowns, homework and bedtime battles, as well as the dreaded and endless phone calls and notes home from the teacher, principal, whatever. So while summer can see a worsening in behavior for some kids, as I've talked about in previous videos and blog posts, for other kids, summertime is actually their best time of year. Moms tell me this all the time, that their child is doing fine, even off their medication sometimes in the summer, that they did great at summer camp, that they got enough sleep, and they weren't so overwhelmed. But as soon as they are back in school, their behavior just takes a total nosedive and gets so much worse, and there's all kinds of problems. So one of the main differences between school and summer are the activities. When kids are at day camp, they aren't sitting in desks. They are doing hands-on learning and activities. Kids with ADHD, ASD, and everything in between are often the kinesthetic learners. They need to do stuff, not just to watch and listen. So even if they aren't in camp during the summer, they are getting all sorts of movement, and they aren't expected to sit and do mental work for long periods of time. So let's face it, as much as we love how hardworking and dedicated the teachers are, there is nothing natural about the current school system, which really hasn't changed much since the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s. The entire purpose to how the school system was designed, to having kids sitting in desks for hours, doing rote work, was because in the 1800s, millionaire industrialists complained to the politicians that their factory workers were untrained and that they couldn't sit or stand long enough and do repetitive tasks, for hours on end. So while you might want to celebrate that your child is, an undiagnosed trailblazer and is super creative and, just doesn't fit into the education system, they do need to learn. And unless you can afford all the other possibilities, they need to be in school and functioning. So when school starts, there's always that lovely honeymoon period. And then the notes and the phone calls home start. And that usually happens around middle of October, if not sooner. And you might not be getting, a report card back, but the back to school merry-go-round can totally make you feel like a failure as a mom. So besides homeschooling, what can you do to make the school year more pleasant for not only your child, but for yourself as well? Before I blow out a list of suggestions that you've probably read a million times before, let's talk why. Why do kids who are ADHD and on the autism spectrum have the potential to get so much worse with back to school? So number one, and I know you've heard it before, but I'm going to say it again, is sleep. Lack of sleep is the number one reason your child is waking up in a poor mood in the morning, and why they hate mornings and you hate mornings. Some children need 12 hours sleep, even some 11 and 12-year-olds. A 10-year-old client of mine required up to 12 hours of sleep, or her behavior and her sensory processing issues were an absolute nightmare. And if she got 10 hours of sleep, that was enough to make it really serious. So it wasn't until she was almost 11 years old, when we were able to address gut healing and did brain training, that her brain was much more resilient to the stresses of the day. So in the summer, kids can sleep in and nap during the day. So don't underestimate the power of earlier bedtimes and even napping after school. 20 minutes after school, if your child is willing, of course, can be the difference between homework hell and homework heaven. The other reason kids can get so out of sorts with back to school is lack of movement and transition. Okay, so your child is probably not running a marathon or doing laps around the swimming pool all summer, but they are moving more. They are also moving more freely. If they feel like getting up and walking around, they can, and if they, want to take a break from whatever it is they're doing, they can do that. It's not like being in class where they are required to do so much self-regulating and to sit and maintain a high amount of focus and concentration, to use so much mental energy when, maybe they actually prefer to get up more often, or they tend to want to get up midway between a certain class, but they can't. So simply being in the same environment or room all day can be mundane, particularly for children who are highly creative, children with ADHD, and this can contribute to restlessness and undesirable behavior. So manage this challenge by building movement into their day in the morning during the school year. Even 20 minutes before leaving for school can help to improve focus in class. And I know you're probably thinking, I don't have time in the morning. But you do if you can get your kid to bed earlier and they can get up earlier and get that movement in. And if you're concerned that your child is not getting enough movement, voice your concerns at the PTA that you would like to see more body breaks during class time. This can also be implemented into an IEP. So some schools actually have whole school morning exercise in the hallway for 20 to 30 minutes. Not surprisingly, these schools have much better test scores and a decreased rate of ADHD diagnoses and symptoms. So work with the school, not against it, and get that ball rolling. The bottom line is, if your child is ADHD or ASD, ensure they are getting plenty of movement after school. Around 60 minutes a day has been found in the research to make a huge difference with behavior, restlessness, and focus, or lack of focus. So this is best done before homework. So get that movement in, preferably when they come home from school, and they will be better focused for homework. So reason number 3 is jet lag. So you might be thinking, but Lorraine, we didn't do anything this summer. What are you talking about, jet lag? And yet back to school can leave kids with a jet lag if they were staying up late. So for 2 months, they were wired to wake up at 9 or even 10 a.m. and are now expected to wake up and be happy at 6 or 7 a.m. And that's going to take some adjusting, especially for these kids. So gradually weaning them into their new bedtime now as soon as possible can help. Have your child go to bed 15 minutes earlier every 2 to 3 days so they readjust and are less tired when school starts. Reason number 4, back to school can be a battle and a half, is, let's face it, for these kids, school can be a total brain drainer. School requires a lot from your child, even on the best of days. When kids have ADHD or learning disabilities and so forth, they use a ton of mental energy in order to focus, self-regulate, and concentrate. You know this because sometimes they manage fine at school, but the meltdown happens when they come home. They face frustration on an hourly basis, whether it's with something they do not understand, being redirected countless times by a teacher because they aren't focusing well, or dealing with other kids who, don't understand them and are being unkind because they just don't get your child's quirks. So this is no small task when their brain has been on vacation for 2 months. Extra rest can help your child better cope with all of the stressors of the back to school routine. If your child would normally go to bed at 7:30 p.m., have them go to bed earlier by even 30 minutes for the first few weeks to help ease their mental and emotional overwhelm. And you can kind of, reward them on the weekend if they're willing to cooperate with going to bed a little bit earlier for a time. If your child struggles with academics, ensure your child does at least one activity a day that they really enjoy and that they're really good at. These feelings of success will help increase their self-esteem and buffer any feelings of failure that they might be experiencing at school. Now, the last reason back to school can cause behavior to take a nosedive is overscheduling. Let's face it, it's not just back to school. It's back to sports, it's back to dance, it's back to karate, etc., etc., etc. Kids with ADHD, LD, and autism spectrum are often more vulnerable to sensory overload. And as hard as this might be to accept, school might be the only schedule they need. I can't tell you how many parents with great intentions have their ADHD and ASD kids in hockey and karate and dance and gymnastics, or all of the above, out of peer pressure. So don't drink that poison. There is so much research that overscheduling and lack of free play is one of the reasons why kids are having more learning difficulties and struggle with problem solving and lack resilience. So of course, it's okay to have your kids in these events, but moderation, or possibly not at all if your kid just isn't handling it well. And this might really require a mindset change because many of us have it so ingrained in us that our kids need to be involved in stuff. And I think it's a sickness in our culture. It's like school is not enough. And if this sounds like you, try and remind yourself that our mothers and grandmothers in no way felt that they had to enroll children in after school activities and be running here and there. So I repeat, you are not a bad mom by having your child involved, or not having your child, I should say, involved in sports or after school activities. You are possibly actually helping them to develop a better brain, I promise. So after a full day of scheduling at school, a lot of these kids just need a whole lot of free play and downtime. So downtime away from screens, that is, right? Because that can just be a whole other problem in itself. This can potentially improve your child's mood and give you more time to better take care of yourself and be a better mom for it. So if you're wondering what the root cause of your child's challenges might be, hop onto my website and take the quiz. I'll post the link in the comments below. And if you want, schedule a free 20-minute Better Brain breakthrough session where I will help you identify 3 changes that you can make today to help your child move beyond their limitations and soar to their full potential. Thanks for listening.